Hey, welcome to another installment of Beyond the Table. And hopefully you're enjoying this and you're taking some of the conversation that we're having and having your own at different tables and settings. And so do me a favor. I want you to subscribe, hit like, share if it benefited you. And man, I'm just excited about what is taking place in the conversations that are happening through this medium and podcast. Today I have a friend and a guest, Josh Kubik, with me. He's a business owner, business leader, involved in many businesses. And so what's going to be interesting today is we're going to talk about generational business. And we'll get more into that. But Josh, if you would, take a moment, just tell everybody kind of what you do, the different businesses you actually are working in and leading and herding cats in and all that kind of good stuff.
Well, I started my career in '96 as a junior in high school in our family business, which was a machine shop back then, just a machine shop. And there was probably 10 to 15 employees. So I worked there. My dad, I didn't say he started that company, but my great-grandfather actually got him into it. So
okay.
Some generations there. My grandfather went in the military and then worked at Exxon, so he skipped out. So I worked there, worked my way through the company. It's challenging working in a family business for sure. Plenty of conflict, healthy and unhealthy. In 2013, due to adding some services we changed the name from Baytown Ace Machine to Baytown Ace Industrial Services. That same year, we got a little crazy, and we started an industrial supply company.
All right.
And then in 2018, I went to buy a piece of equipment from a guy that was going to retire and go out of business, and ended up buying the whole business in Houston. So we've taken over a family business, we've created a business, and we've acquired a business. And they all have their great points and their tough points.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. And it's been fun watching you in your journey. And I know I have a list of questions I want to get to, but I said something the other day, and it's not original with me. I think I read it somewhere, saw it somewhere. But it talked about in leadership, or especially people that are believers and you know, want to honor God and His kingdom and everything we do. They made the comment, they said, in leadership, you start with God in mind. And I've watched you do that. I've watched you do that in your home as a dad, as a husband, but I've also seen you do that in your company. Real quick, tell me how that works, because you do it well, because you don't do it weird. And so I've enjoyed watching that aspect and dynamic that in leadership, even in business, we start with God in mind. So talk to me about that for a second.
So I really believe our business is a gift from God. So I'm big on stewardship.
Yeah.
So it's a gift, and I'm just a steward of it for my season, whatever season that is. And again, I don't think you should be any different at church, with your pastor, with your friends, at home with my kids. So for me, it's being the same person, flawed and all, in each one of those places. And it's about the people. So I think of our business, and I don't always get it right. I aim to be right, but I don't always get it right. It's a mission field. That's with my gift set, my talents, my skills. That's where God placed me to reach and change people, is our business, whether it is an employee, a vendor, or customer. So, and again, I don't wear my Jesus t-shirt just to work. People know who I am, what I believe in, and so we just try to live it out in front of them and be available.
Yeah.
When you're ready.
Well, man, I think you've done that very well, and it's been fun watching you and do that. And so, but you have a unique perspective when it comes to generational business and generational leadership, because I believe that good, bad, and ugly, we're standing on shoulders of men and women who've gone before us. And those that have done it really well allow us to go beyond where we ever could go before. And so when leading a generational business, what values or cultural values have you sustained in the organization that you could look back and say, this was your great-grandfather's values? And though you say your granddad worked at one of the plants and not for the company, I'm sure you probably could see that value thread go through. So what would be some of those?
Well, I probably gained more from him than anybody else. Just because, for one, he had a disability, he had polio. And so I never knew him without a disability. But he did more than most of us will ever do put together with a disability. He didn't see it as a disability.
Right.
So he just went slower. So some culture, persistence.
Okay.
Whatever is right, you just never get off of it. Some days that's a challenge. Some days it goes easy. One thing I try really hard to, and I'll give you an example. I had a guy a while back. We were having a healthy conflict about the right way to do something. And he made the comment of, I just want you to be happy, which is a hard task to make me happy anyway. I can be challenging. But my comment is don't make me happy. What happens if your job when you come to work is to please me, no matter what it is? A, I'm opinionated, so I can change my mind. Two, talking about generationally, what happens if something happens to me? If you're trying to make me happy, what happens when tragedy happens and I pass away, or we change it and one of my children or one of my nieces or nephews gets into business and it's a whole different person?
Yeah.
Can you change him, please? So for me, it is honor the organization. Don't make it about an individual, because when you honor the organization, you just change the leadership face that keeps going. It's not about a family name, a person. You honor the organization. That's worked well for us.
That's good. I think that's healthy. So persistence is one of them that you've seen. What might be another cultural value you've seen passed down?
Lots of hard work.
Okay.
Doing the hard things.
Good work ethic.
Good work ethic and doing the hard things.
Okay.
There's people that work hard, but they always want to do the easier, fun things.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's doing the right thing every time. Doing the thing you know that, whether it's God-based or DNA-based that somebody taught you, or something that is in you, is always do the right thing, especially as a leader. You're walking through the shop and people throw something on the floor, or there's a piece of trash on the floor. Stop and pick it up.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are. And my leaders will tell you I'll crack on them just as much as anybody else. So pick it up.
Yeah.
Pick it up, put it up. And you've experienced this some, not me and you directly, but take a picture of it.
Yeah.
It's hard when you live in something in the moment, but when you can look at a photograph and go, that's just not right. That's not who we are. So never who you are at your core, your values, just never get off of them.
Yeah.
Never settle.
I love that. My philosophy is it's never not your job. If you see trash, you don't say, well, that's just not my job. Okay, it is your job. It's part of the organization that we try to take care of it.
And it's about being teammates.
Yeah.
I may be one of the owners and have all the big vote at the end of the day and everybody follows me. But this weekend, I spent the whole weekend short of church on Sunday morning running a machine in one of our businesses. So
yeah,
they see me work with. They see that I'm not special. I know who I am. I know what I make. But it's not about me. It's about the thing. So keep the thing running. It will honor you.
That's good. Any other cultural value that you could say was passed down?
Attention to detail. Extreme attention to detail. All the little things.
Yeah.
I get hung up, but I watch the little things a lot more than the big things sometimes, because the little things will affect the big things.
Yeah, sooner or later, that's for sure. What's some advantages of owning or being a part of a generational business?
Well, I think a lot of it is, if you grew up in a household and people are consistent in life, you have one of those families that it's not two different people, one at work, one at home, one at church. The way it is run and led is kind of in you. You have the advantage of knowing. My dad will still say to this day, sometimes we'll be working and he just turns around and I hand him the tool that he's going to need, or vice versa to me, because you kind of know what's going to happen. It's inside of you. So there's that. I think also with a generational business, we're both interested in it. So you take a business that is bought out by an investor or a group, they're trying to buy it to flip it to make money. Somebody's always got a different incentive of why they want to lead something a certain way. Well, when it's in a family lineage, if it's done right, it's it's sustainability. We want to see it multiply every generation.
Sure. What would be a disadvantage of being a part of a generational business? The generations. I wouldn't say a disadvantage. I'd just say maybe a challenge.
It is a real challenge.
Yeah.
It's, for one, when you hand it, and I'm not there. I'm trying to. I knew how it was done with me.
Yeah.
A lot of pros and a lot of cons, and I'm trying to do it different with my children if they want to participate. The disadvantages or, you created the thing. You being the generation ahead of me, you created it, so it's your baby.
Yeah.
And there's some trust challenges that come up. Do I trust you? Is it your time? Is it not your time? There's a lot of criticalness sometimes.
Yeah.
That as a younger person, it's hard to digest. That's not the way I did it. You're not doing it right. You're not working hard enough. You're not this. You're not that. We had a lot of challenges when I kind of had my moment, and it proven that I could lead it. Dad was still hanging around. And we have a very common idea of what the end goal looks like. We have some different ways of getting there.
Sure.
And so that caused a lot of problems. I say I pushed him out. He would tell you that. My mom sometimes still, I think it bothers her the way that all went down, but I had to push him out. I was ready. I think he knew I was ready, or he wouldn't have stewarded me with it, trusted me with it.
Yeah.
But at some point there's got to be a leader. And we had some comments and some conversations sometimes of, if you want to still play, then you need to carry it. Back then it was pagers. You need to carry the pager and answer the phone at 2:00 in the morning. If you're ready to semi-retire or slow down, not get out of the way, then there's got to be one torchbearer.
Yeah. It's funny. I had a conversation with a guy one time. He was, he's in church world, upper leadership. And I asked him, I said, listen, I want you to show up at this gathering. I don't want you to wear a coat and tie. I just want you to show up as you. And I'm going to ask you questions. And I gave him questions ahead of time. This is way before podcast. But one of the things I asked was, what do you need to see in me before you're willing to pass the baton? And that was one, it was very insightful for him because he had to think through it, but then he had to qualify it. Because most people will say, well, I need to see this, I need to see that, I need to see this. Okay, but can you qualify it and quantify it so that you can release? Because whether it be a generational business, whether it be a ministry, we're either going to hand people a baton or we're going to hand them a cane, one of the two. And if it's a cane, they have to rebuild that momentum. If it's a baton, you're moving with the momentum and you can grow. And even though you experience the challenge of that, I would say and give your dad credit in this, that it was a baton. The pass-off might not have been as smooth as would win the Olympics.
It just had the appearance of a fuse in it someday, like a stick of dynamite. It was a baton. I mean, I owe a lot of it. I mean, a lot of who I am today is my parents and grandparents. I mean, when you're living through it, some days it's tough.
Yeah.
It's a hot place. But, we wouldn't be who we are. And I think that's the big thing about generational business is the next generation shouldn't be better per se, but they should sustain the thing and it should have growth. I mean, I think they're better because they stand on your shoulders, but I'm big on, I had this conversation, we were talking about this with a friend the other day about this podcast coming up. And I had the old saying of how you teach a kid to swim. Well, your uncle or your grandpa took your life jacket off and threw you in and you hope you didn't hit the bottom and blow bubbles.
Yeah.
And I thought about that a lot and go, I still believe in throwing the person in. Yeah. But you need to orientate them of where they need to swim to.
Right.
So I'm big on you have to fight. And even with my kids, we push hard at our house. I mean, it's a very loving, very kind, very supportive, but we push hard because I'm teaching them to fight. I think generational success is in the fight of the person.
Yeah, I think parenting, we've missed it some, and it's a completely different subject, but it goes to generational business. I think you parent kids to be independent and interdependent, not codependent.
Sure.
And we've created a generation of codependents or so independent that they can't even become interdependent with somebody else or with an organization or a business or something of that nature. And so, but that's a whole nother deal. What's some of the things you learned from your father and his leadership that kind of has impacted the way that you've moved forward and that you've led?
I think a big positive was like servant leadership. Not afraid to do anything. My dad never, and my mom too, she was in the business, never thought they were better than anybody else.
Yeah.
May have a different role, different torch, a lot more responsibility with banks and everybody else, but they didn't see themselves as different.
Yeah.
They just got out front with their sword and got after it. So, and my grandparents too, just great examples of you just get out there and fight it. And I mean, people ask me, you have a new salesperson, you go make a sales call with them, and they'll get kind of nervous and go, how do I introduce you?
Yeah.
Your coworker, man. I mean, people know who I am.
Yeah.
But I'm just your coworker. I'm your team. I want to be the best. My goal when I get up is to be the best teammate I can to everybody on my team. Some disadvantages, or not disadvantages, but some challenges that I saw in his leadership. He would focus too much on the details almost, which was a limiting factor because he would worry so much about something or what somebody was doing, which was a skill set too. But at the same time, it was squeezed and he couldn't let it grow. So it kind of stayed small, just probably struggled with some vision, or maybe that was the best vision from where he started out he had. I don't want to kick him for that, but for me it was, because he'll still come by sometimes and go, hey, do you know so-and-so's doing that, or they're doing that wrong? And I'll make the comment, Dad, there's 4 people that we pay between me and it to worry about it. It still bothers me, but I have to worry about what I've been stewarded with, which may be bigger picture or different. And now there's 3 businesses in 3 locations.
Yeah.
I can't worry about one guy in LA that's got the party. I mean, it's important, but he would get hung up on something minute or small and kind of forget the trajectory of where we were going.
Yeah.
All that's important is who made us, but at the same time, now you have to turn around and look forward. And I think a lot of it was just where he was in the life cycle of the business. You had to pay attention to those things. It was more hands-on where he was. And as we've scaled it, I've had the advantage of finding somebody that can do it. Now, sometimes they can't do it as good as you or however, but you can't grow if you can't give up a little control to let them do it to the best of their ability. And sometimes you have to change people. It's just hard.
Yeah. Oh, it is. I do think that, I think it's Maxwell says if somebody can do it at 70 or 80%, level that you can, you need to turn it loose.
Exactly.
And, your world deals with such minute scale. I can see how that's very hard to do.
It's hard. It's very critical. It's, down to thousandths of an inch. So everything is, I'd say this sometimes, perfection is possible.
Yeah.
Because there's an absolute you're going for, and if you don't make that absolute, it's garbage. So that mindset is great, but at the same time, it's hard to lead that way. Because everybody disappoints you. They can come up short. So it's important to where we're going.
Yeah, but you said something a moment ago, and I want to go back to it because, one, I think there's some positive in it, but I think there's also some things that might be not clearly understood when you said, one's not better than the other, and I completely understand where you're at in that, but I do think there's a place where in a generational business, you've had the privilege of seeing, but also growing. It doesn't make you better. It's just going to make you different because of growth. And so talk to me a little bit about that growth journey, because in a generational business, you can keep doing widgets the way the same person did the widget, and it worked for the next generation. But, to grow and expand from, one machine shop down to 3 full-blown companies, that's there's been some growth in there.
There's been a lot of growth, and I can give you credit for a lot of that, putting that spark in there. I figured out if I just spent my whole life in the machine shop, which I watched others, even mom and dad do a lot, and they've grown a lot, but it's limiting. At some point, you're trapped in the bubble, and you can keep refining your little bubble, but there's no influence in it. It's almost incestual. However good or bad that is, it's the same thing tumbling around. You never add anything from an outside source. So I had some huge growth moments when I started going to conferences or expos, and then I started reading books, and I got on a book kick. I still like to read a lot, but I'd get where I'd read 50 to 60 books and just fast as I could read them, which then you burn out of reading books. But a lot of opening myself up to different mentors, and not just in my industry, of business growth, of how do I make myself better? How do I think different? So a lot of it was reprogramming my mind, not be the same as it was. Take those core values and those principles and everything that was amazing from your parents. And I think you could have generational things, even if it's not in the same family name.
Sure.
But taking all the trash that was there too, even we had some great leaders in our business. To this day, we still keep in touch, that taught me some amazing things, and they taught me some amazingly wrong things.
Yeah.
And so for me, I say I have the gift of observation sometimes. You watch what's right, you pour the gas on that fire and multiply that. You figure out what's wrong or what people are doing wrong. Watch people's personal lives. Just pay attention to what's going around you and go, let's just not do that. They taught us the lesson themselves. We don't have to do that.
Yeah. They ran in that pothole. I trust them.
Yes.
In thinking about generation, and who knows what happens next. I'm like you. I feel like I'm a steward of what I do for a time and a season. Sooner or later, I'm gonna pass it to somebody who I don't know yet. But in a generational business, you assume somebody with your last name may get it.
You hope so.
Next, that's the hopes. How do you prepare your children for the next, whether the organization may or may not be in their future? And how do you not force that?
So let's go back to me. I wasn't forced.
Okay.
High school graduate. That's the end of it. Maybe a couple college classes that anyway, didn't go to college. That wasn't my thing. I didn't actually start participating in the machine shop of what the machine shop did until I was probably 19, 20 years old.
Okay.
I was painting fences, mowing the grass, doing all the stuff that nobody wanted to do. Again, my parents taught me how to be respectful, how to work hard. They kind of created the best me and then let me choose what I want to do. I mean, they'll tell you this day they pushed me to go to college and I didn't want to go. So I think you create the character of the person. You kind of develop the person. And I think you should live your life in such a way that people want to be like you. Even going back to the godly business part.
Right.
Live in a way that people stop and go, there's something different with that one. So for me, with our kids, we have 2 kids, and I have my sister's involved in the business, and she's got 3 children. My son Aiden says he wants to take my job one day, which he's got a long way to go. He's an amazing kid. But even at home, we're just trying to teach them to be amazing, God-fearing individuals.
Yeah.
And I'm real. I'll come home from work, and he's like, what's wrong, Dad? Well, I had to fire somebody today.
Yeah.
Or we had this challenge, or we had this, or you come home and we had this win. And so I'm just real in front of them. But you see a lot of, and I'm going to go from dads.
They see the weight of the job instead of just the benefits of the job.
Yes.
Well, I think in a lot of generational businesses, they want it, and I know I'm cascading a broad net, but they want it because they see the benefit package, yes. But they don't see the weight of this is what you carry.
We've tried hard at our house. I would say we've done well as a family, even generations before me. But I don't know that I ever thought we had anything. I thought we worked hard for what we had.
Sure.
So there was no money tree in the backyard. There was no sugar daddy. We worked for things. We still worked on our own stuff, changed on our own cars, whether we could or couldn't afford to do it. We just did. Yeah. So I saw it come from nothing to something. But there was never a entitlement issue at all. Even with my kids, as blessed as they are, and my parents spoil them sometimes more than I wish they did. We don't give them that entitlement card.
Yeah,
you work for it, you earn it. What your reward is a byproduct of you, nobody else.
Yeah.
I don't believe in giving things to people. I think you give people opportunities, and you give them the education and knowledge they need for that opportunity, and then it's really up to them. So that's kind of where we're at. But I watched a lot of dads in the plants come home and gripe about their job. Guys making well the 6 figures, they provide for their family, sent their kids to college, paid for the house, paid for the boat, all things. And Dad came home and go, my job is just terrible. I hate my job. My boss is a moron. All the terrible things.
Yeah.
And so that's a conflict for people. Well, then why do you get up, Dad, and go there every day if it's terrible? And so Junior doesn't want to go be like Dad because Dad just comes home and kicks the dog and gripes about his job.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm real about my job, but I don't complain about it. They know there's hard things. I'll ask, and I'm honest with why the hard things were hard and why the wins were the win. We're very open with our children about everything. So for me, it's an honor that my kid wants to, after he sees me,
sees all that,
every bit of it, yes. Nothing did, and you go, I want to be about it.
Yeah. And I think the key there is what you said is developing the character that is in our kids and then feeding the bent. I think our kids are bent one way or the other, and instead of bending them away they're not, you shape and help in their own bent, their own drive, their own direction. But the main thing to do is fortify that character.
And that's an advantage as a business grows, as it becomes next generation. It should always grow.
Sure.
Even growth in anything. that my kids don't have to do what I did in the business. It was small enough I had to follow almost in the exact same footsteps.
Yeah.
I got to pick. I had the advantage of there was some stability. It was moving. It had, it didn't just go, hey, I just want to dream up something today and have to go build a building. It was there. I lost my mind there for a minute. Geez.
Well, I think if they're going to grow it, they can't start where you started.
Correct, but they have to.
But they have to have the value.
They have to learn the lessons I learned.
Yes.
They don't have to start at the bottom. Oh, we have, you can be an accountant because they're in an accounting department now. Mom used to do that. Mom used to do accounting, HR, AP, all of it, right? But now there's departments. So you can go be an engineer and work in the company. You can go be an accountant and work in the company. At that point, you may be able to go be a lawyer and work in the company. Back when,
right,
you had to grease and metal shavings to work in the company. So there are some avenues is if you do the generations before you do right, that you don't have to be just like dad or grandpa or mom or sister or aunt. You can just you can be you with that bent and do well.
Yeah. See, I love that. I think it's a very, very healthy way to, bring the next generation along in the journey, instead of just saying, hey, here, and then they find out, I don't want that, and drop it back in your lap, or worse yet, somewhere else. Yeah.
Auction.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's important is, I don't think dad did it wrong, but it was strained for a while, was relationship. I don't think you're supposed to be friends with your kid. I think you're supposed to be friendly with your children.
Yeah.
But the door's always open relational. I mean, me and dad didn't talk a lot for a long time. We talked, communicated for whatever we needed, but it wasn't deep because we were probably both frustrated and wanted to choke each other.
Yeah.
And I watched that. I don't think it was bad. I think we were doing the best we could with the knowledge we had at the moment. But with my kids, I try to keep a very open line of communication. We talk a lot about things. We'll see something, or I'll do something. I'll instigate a conversation about some hard things so we can just walk through it. There's times that I'll make a mistake at home or do something I shouldn't have, say something, get a little short, whatever, and we'll talk through it. We'll find later when the moment's over and go, okay, whether it was with me and my wife or me and the other child, and go, okay, let's talk about that. Where was I wrong? Where was the other person wrong? How could we have both done better? How could we have won? So relationship and communication is key, because it's trust, and you got to have trust.
Yeah.
When you start passing things, I think people get nervous when they lose the feeling of trust. Even if they know they trusted, it's in better hands than anybody else.
Sure.
If they don't feel the trust,
I think the problem, because my kids are older than yours by quite a bit, I think the challenge comes from, for me, is when you start shifting that I was the authority in their life, now that I'm the advisor in their lives. And then when I'm the advisor in their life, they actually have the right to take my advice or not take.
You're not in control, and they have a vote.
But at the same time, then I'm not going to rescue you from the consequences of that decision. Where when I was the authority of your life and I said, do this or don't do this, I had some responsibility toward those consequences.
Sure.
That gets harder because most people, still want to be their 25-year-old kid's authority instead of advisor.
It is, and I watched that. I think one of the best things my parents did, and I really did understand it and struggle with the time, is they let me work for employees. So if I was late getting back from lunch, I would get fussed at and go, you're not your dad. You're supposed to have lunch from 12 to 1.
Yeah.
1:05, where you at? Or if I came in late, or if I didn't put my safety glasses, anything you could imagine, I would get cracked on it, get rolled up, sent home. There's times I wouldn't even see my dad at work. He's in the building, or my mom, either one, because I worked for someone else.
Sure.
Which I think was a huge advantage, because I learned to respect other people in the organization versus it's just a family kingdom.
And it lets you see how the total organization operated and functioned, not just from mom and dad's position or place.
It is. It's a huge advantage. I think children, family members should either work in every spot starting at the bottom and for the person at the bottom.
Yeah.
And not those people are less. They just, sometimes it's less responsibility, less pay, or they should go work in another business somewhere else. Because they'll appreciate things better. They'll steward things better. Just a whole, if you go off and go to college and come in and you just get a big corner office, it's not going to go well.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it does, but
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't.
more often than not, if it's up to you,
Yeah. I think that goes back to, did you develop the character things? Because if the character's right, they can handle the corner office. If the character's not right, then they may not even be able to handle sweeping of the shop. Because, I've said this a lot lately, is that it's harder to carry success than it is failure.
for sure. I think people, for me, the way I was raised and the way I'm raising my children is you have to earn it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's given to you. Your inheritance is different than your role,
Yeah.
right? If I die today, you're going to get half of what there's 2 children. You can split it,
Yeah.
but that's not earned. That's a gift.
Yeah.
So I think the opportunity is the gift. You have to earn your spot and your ranking in the hierarchy.
Yeah. That's good. Well, man, thanks for being vulnerable and honest and kind of
welcome.
sharing some of the journey. I think it's going to be a great conversation, whether you own a generational business or you don't. We're all investing in the next generation, at least I hope. And if you're doing that and you're they say leadership is influence. So you're influencing someone.
Sure.
And so are you having a good influence or a negative influence? And so I think those are things that we can take and have conversation around. And what are the cultural values that you're handing to the next generation, whether it's in your home or in your organization, in your business, whether it's going to be a legacy business or not. And so anyway, hey, thanks for joining me today. And you'll be getting a notice of our next upcoming Beyond the Table this next month. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.